Hi. So, I am 6 days out, less than a week now, from my major spine surgery. I am getting 3 levels fused, 2 of them done with interbody cages, and the third is just on the backside with screws and rods, no interbody cage. The borderline one that is just getting the light fusion is L5S1. The 2 levels that are completely trashed are L3, L4, and L4, L5. Both of those levels I had previous laminectomies on and disc fragments removed over the years. The first one was in 2002. I had L4, L5 operated on. That one was completely paralyzed on my right side from the waist down. Leg was dead. You had to grab my pants and wiggle it around just to try to get in and out of a wheelchair. And then after that, my spine just turned to mush. There was a cycle about every year and a half or so after that. I would completely blow a disc badly that I'd have major nerve issues from. A year and a half after that first operation, it was the next one up at L3, L4. And over the years, I've blown out L3, L4, and L4, L5 multiple times. Finally, back in 2013, I blew out L3, L4 again, and that one I could just not get back in. I suffered with that one for months, and finally when it comes to back surgery, you know when it's time, and that one was time. And so they cut that fragment out, and my disc spacing was still good. And I rebounded from that one really quickly. And now we're almost, I started having real problems about 3 years ago, which would have been 5 or 6 years after that L3, L4, which was in 2013. I started getting a whole lot more arthritis, and I didn't have many disc issues after that because, I don't really have any discs left to throw on those levels. But so I was getting a lot more arthritis, and I'd actually broken a couple of ribs playing hockey. And in the x-rays from my ribs, I saw a lot of stuff that I caught some glimpses of stuff that didn't look good at all down in my spine. And like I said, that was when I started getting the bad arthritis. Became my main complaint then. And so I decided to get a fresh look at everything and try to up my pain management. See if they could help me out with injections, nerve blocks, all that stuff. And so I went through a round of imaging, and they basically said, yeah, your problem is your end plates are completely shot on those 2 levels you've had operated on before. There's like no disc left, and the L4 vertebrae in the middle is cocked, is twisted, and the opposite corners are grinding on the level above and below. And it's also shifted front a little bit, and determined that all my problems were in my end plates and disc level, and that basically there was absolutely nothing they could do for me injection wise. They said, Basically, you're at the point now where your problems aren't complicated, they're just complex, whatever that means. It means I had simple problems just on multiple levels, was my doctor's term for it. And basically said my only option was to fuse the whole bottom end of my spine and hopefully have a somewhat pain-free life. And that operation, I've known it was coming for years. I was hoping to get a few more years out of it. And I said, well, I'm miserable, but I'm not that miserable yet. So off I went. I was hoping to get 5 more years out of my back. And, well, now 3 years later, it's really getting bad. The arthritis, but I also have a lot of the bone spurs are really starting to narrow out my all the spaces where the nerve roots go through, and it's just ugly. And I'm in constant pain, but like it's not pain like I was in before with the nerves and the discs where I was completely paralyzed. It's not, I call my pain a 4 or a 5, but compared to the paralyzing nerve compression I've had before, you do not have any idea what kind of pain that much nerve compression is. And so ever since that first episode back in 2002, my pain scale is totally skewed compared to a normal person. You compare pain to the worst pain you've ever felt in your life. And if you haven't really felt that much, a paper cut or a broken rib or a broken finger, people would rate that on a 10 scale. It ain't for me. And so my pain now, with this arthritis and the grinding and everything, compared to that, it's not all that bad, but it's just life sucking. It's years and years, and my twist in my spine is getting worse, and the bone spurs are getting worse, and I'm just constantly miserable, and it's time. So I went back, got a fresh round of imaging, and this was a few months back in the fall. I had a little window in life where I was between work projects and I could afford to be out of action for a few months. And so I decided I would do this and meticulously planned and scheduled everything out to fall right in this window of life that, this kind of surgery is going to put you out for a long time, but I could tolerate it. And the big thing was, in my mind at least, that I was doing it on my terms, and not all of a sudden I was desperately crippled. I didn't want to all of a sudden lose my entire summer of work or life or anything else. And same thing for my caretakers and my family, and my beautiful girlfriend who I love dearly and is going to be driven crazy by nursing me back to health. But so that's a little background. There's a more interesting story about how my spine started rotting away. That very first disc I threw that ended up paralyzing my right leg completely, back in 2002. At that time, I was a young kid. I was in my early 20s, and I was at work one day and reached down to pull a dock plate just slide it a few inches and grabbed a hold of it and pulled and felt something pop in my back, like the old rubber band snapping type of feel. And back then I didn't know nothing about backs. I just knew I hurt my back. And I told my boss, said, "Hey boss, I was doing this and I hurt my back and I think I'll be all right, but just letting you know because we got to report all injuries and all that stuff." He said, "Yep, no problem." And so I, babied it for a couple days, and it hurt me for I don't know a week or two, and it was just about getting better, and I would do something stupid and pop it again, and go through the same cycle. It would just about be getting better, and then I would do something else and pop it again. Each time I did that, it started getting a little bit worse, and a few weeks after the first time, I went to my boss. I said, "Hey, boss, man, remember a couple weeks ago when I hurt my back? I think I need to go to the doctor for that." And he said, "What time you hurt your back? You didn't hurt anything." So, yeah, that's how my boss and my company played that whole thing out. And so, I said, "Sorry, we're not helping you, but you're on your own." So I went to my own doctor, and my own doctor sees this kid in his early 20s coming in, say he's got this horrible back pain, and he thought I was drug seeking. Probably because I was. But I wasn't drug seeking, I was relief seeking. But so he sent me out of there, said you didn't even really look at me, just said, "How's this feel? How's this feel?" Said, "You probably have a recurring sprain in your sacroiliac joint, and take some prescription strength Advil and for a week or two and you'll be fine." So did that. Just kept getting worse. Went back, saw him again. Said, "Well, let's try a different anti-inflammatory." Gave me some naproxen or something like that. Sent me on out of there. Same thing. By the time it was all said and done, I was in there to see him 4 times within a month and a half, begging him for help. And I told him, I said, I stand in the mirror, I look at myself in the mirror, and I see my spine twisting like an S, like something is seriously wrong. And he never even so much as pulled up my shirt to look at it. Just kept sending me on out of there. And then after about the 4th time I was in to see him, one morning I went to get out of bed and stepped out of bed and hit the ground because my leg gave out, because I woke up with horrible nerve compression in my leg. And that was pain like I hadn't experienced before. It was bound to get worse. I didn't know that at the time. So I called him up and said, "Hey, I got something else going on in here." He's, "Well," I'm like, I can't tolerate this." He said, "Well, okay, well, maybe we ought to get you in for an MRI. So finally get me sent in for an MRI. Come to find out, I have just a massive disc herniation. I mean, the medical terms used in the reports, and by the radiologist and my surgeon eventually, was extremely large, huge, etc. And so then my doctor decided, oops, I screwed up. And he decided he couldn't be my doctor anymore all of a sudden. So he passed me off to another guy, which was fine with me because at this point I was ready to literally beat him in the face. And this new guy got me set up to This new guy got me set up to see a neurosurgeon. And of course, my appointment was in, I don't know, 3 or 4 months or something like that. Uh, and he changed my meds around, put me on some steroids, and still no real relief. But anyway, said, well, take care and see what the neurosurgeon says in 3 months. So at this point, I couldn't work anymore, and I was kind of hanging around home. And spending all this time in the doctor's office, I ended up getting the flu. And coughing from the flu is the theory that I finally broke off a giant free fragment from this herniation, snapped it off, and that got wedged in my spinal canal. And my body's response to that was to go into massive muscle spasms and just completely cramp and grind and smash that fragment into the nerve. And that episode was, you can't even describe it unless you felt it. So I decided I was going to go to the emergency room. Went to called my brother-in-law, who wasn't working at the time, and said I needed him to take me. So I tried getting into my truck like an idiot, like I was going to drive a half hour to the emergency room. I sat there for 5 seconds in my driveway and decided that was a bad idea. So I called my brother-in-law. He came and got me. I'm a country boy. Nothing's close by. Nobody's close by. By the time he got out to get me, he found me passed out in my front yard. Managed to get me into the back of his car, and finally to the ER. And they took me into the ER, gave me a couple shots of Demerol, and finally medicated me properly after that. And they also wondered why, and like they knew what was wrong with me at that point. It was just a matter of getting me to a surgeon and getting it taken care of. And they also made a couple of calls and somehow managed to get me an appointment a few days later instead of the 3 months I was waiting on. It's funny how that works. So maybe if you're in dire straits, try out the ER. Maybe they'll help you, especially if your doctors can't. Who knows? But anyway, finally saw the doctor and was like, yep, we got to get that thing out of there. And cut me open, and that was clear in, that I was having my surgery. By the time I got to the neurosurgeon and actually had my surgery, that was my L4, L5 laminectomy and disc removal. That was about a week and a half from the day I was at the ER. It was so fast the insurance company couldn't even keep up with getting everything approved in time. But yeah, that's how it all started. And then after that, my spine just kind of turned to mush. Knowing what I know now after 20 years of horrible back problems, going back to that first one, little PT, physical therapy, some time off and some medication. That first maybe 2 or 3 times I'd been to the doctor, I'd be fine now. And now I have this mess to go by. So, anyway, maybe I'll throw some of my my most recent scans up here. You can see the current state of my deformed, degenerative mess of a spine. And maybe I'll make another video when I wake up from surgery. I want to try to make some of these things because looking around at my kind of surgery, there's not a whole lot out there for people who are getting multiple levels fused and this surgery. There's a lot with single levels, but I'm basically getting 2.5 times those at once. So I'm interested to see how it goes. And well, if you're watching this, you're probably in a lot of the same boat as me, and God bless you. Any questions, leave a comment, and I will be updating after Tuesday 2/22/2022, the day of twos. Hopefully it's a lucky one for me. So wish me luck, and I'll keep you posted. Later.